In the sun-drenched streets of a Colombian paradise, the calm was shattered by a horrifying discovery. An abandoned suitcase left on its own held a gruesome secret that would kick off an international manhunt and expose a dark underworld of betrayal. This is the story of how a respected Italian scientist, looking for a connection on a dating app, was led into a deadly trap. Alessandro Coatti was a man of science, driven by curiosity and a desire to understand the world around him. He dedicated his life to knowledge. But in the spring of 2025, his journey of exploration took a dark and fatal turn, ending in a crime so brutal it sent shockwaves from the Caribbean coast all the way to the European scientific community. How could a brilliant mind, known for his work in molecular biology and his passion for social justice, meet such a tragic end? To figure that out, we first need to understand the man himself. By all accounts, Alessandro Coatti was a remarkable person. Born in Italy, he had a sharp intellect and a love for the natural world from a young age. He built a career in science as a molecular and cellular biologist, with a special focus on neuroscience and animal science. His academic path even led him to the prestigious Max Planck Institute for Brain Research, which speaks volumes about his skill and dedication. But Coatti wasn't the kind of scientist who was content just staying in the lab. He believed that science had a duty to be part of the real world, to help shape policy and to challenge prejudice. This belief led him to London, where he joined the Royal Society of Biology, RSB, in 2017. For 7 years, he served as a science policy officer, emerging as a key voice in complex and often heated debates. He led the RSB's work on animal science, the ethical use of animals in research, and the consequences of new genetic technologies. His colleagues don't just remember his intellect, they remember his warmth and his talent for finding common ground between groups with very different ideas. They described him as passionate, kind, and utterly committed to his work. Coatti was also openly queer and believed the scientific method itself was a tool that could be used to promote fairness and challenge old biases. He was a community builder, a man who sought connections in both his personal life. In late 2024, after 7 years of making a real impact, he decided it was time for a new chapter. He left his job at the RSB, ready for an adventure and wanting to reconnect with the natural world he loved. He planned to travel through South America, a continent full of the biodiversity he'd studied for so long. A significant part of that plan was a volunteer stint at the renowned Tipitini Biodiversity Station in the Ecuadorian Amazon, a place of natural beauty. His travels eventually brought him to Colombia and the city of Santa Marta. Sitting on the Caribbean coast, Santa Marta is a huge draw for tourists from all over. It's a city of contrasts, where the stunning Sierra Nevada mountains meet the turquoise sea. It's a place where people go to relax, explore, and escape from the world. For Alessandro Coatti, it was supposed to be just another stop on the trip of a lifetime. But in the shadows of this coastal paradise, a different kind of predator was waiting, one that used the simple human desire for connection as a weapon. In early April of 2025, that idyllic image of Santa Marta was shattered. A suitcase thrown away in the Guerra sector of the city revealed part of a gruesome truth. Inside were human remains. Soon, more were found in other spots around the city. The crime itself, dismemberment, was shocking and suggested a level of brutality you generally associate with organized crime. The first problem for investigators was figuring out who the victim was. There were no ID papers, and the state of the remains made it impossible to identify him by sight. The breakthrough came from a tiny detail: a hotel wristband still attached to one of the limbs. That simple plastic band led police to the victim's hotel, and from there, they identified him as Alessandro Coatti, the 42-year-old Italian scientist on his South American adventure. The news that a foreign tourist had been murdered so violently set off alarm bells. An elite team of Colombian police and prosecutors was put on the case, working closely with Italian authorities. The first theories were grim. Given the narco-style dismemberment, police thought Coatti might have run afoul of a drug cartel or a paramilitary group. Was it a warning? A case of mistaken identity? Those questions swirled in the early days. However, as detectives dug deeper, a different, and perhaps even more chilling, story began to emerge. The key to solving the mystery wasn't in the world of organized crime, but in the digital world. Investigators focused on Coatti's final days, rebuilding his movements and communications. They combed through security camera footage and, critically, got access to his phone. And that's where they found the breadcrumbs that would lead to his killers. The digital forensics team analyzed his chat logs and found that Coatti had been using Grindr, a popular dating and social networking app, for the LGBTQ+ community for his work. He had arranged a meeting with someone from the app, but the profile was a fake. The meeting was a trap. The investigation showed that Coatti had been lured to an abandoned house in the Curinca neighborhood. This wasn't a random act of violence. It was a calculated plot by a criminal gang that specialized in targeting tourists, especially foreigners, through online platforms. Their method was simple but effective. Use a fake profile, set up a meeting, and then rob the victim. In Coatti's case, the plan went horribly wrong. Once at the abandoned house, he was drugged, robbed, and then murdered. While some early reports guessed that the drug scopolamine was used, a drug known for being used in robberies in Colombia to incapacitate people. Official reports haven't confirmed its use in this case. The dismemberment, which first made police think of cartels, was really just a cold, practical decision by the killers. They most likely did it to complicate the identification of the body and to buy themselves more time to escape. It wasn't a mafia hit. It was a robbery that escalated into a horrific murder, committed by a gang that preyed on travelers looking for a human connection. With this new motivation, the investigation accelerated. The digital trail the suspects left on the dating app and through Coatti's stolen phone was what led to their downfall. By tracking the phone's location and analyzing their communications, investigators identified the gang members. In a series of coordinated raids across several Colombian cities, police made their move. 4 suspects, 3 men and 1 woman, were arrested. The arrest confirmed this wasn't the work of a major cartel, but a smaller, though just as vicious, criminal group that found its hunting ground on dating apps. The international manhunt didn't lead to a drug lord, but to a group of predators who murdered a brilliant scientist for the contents of his wallet. The dedication of the investigators who used digital forensics to piece together Alessandro's last moments is a critical part of this story. If you find this deep dive into the complex details of the investigation compelling, take a moment to subscribe to the channel for more true crime analyses that respect the victims and focus on the facts. While police in Colombia were untangling the trap that led to Alessandro Coatti's death, the scientific community around the world was reeling. The first reports were confusing and shocking. As the grim reality set in, waves of grief and disbelief washed over everyone who knew him. A former colleague described his death as a profoundly tragic end to a beautiful life, a feeling echoed in tributes that poured in from all over. Colleagues from the Royal Society of Biology shared memories of a man who was so much more than a brilliant scientist. They remembered his enthusiasm, his kindness, and his dedication to making science a force for good. They talked about his key role in shaping animal welfare policy, making sure that scientific progress was always balanced with ethical concerns. His ability to bring people together and find common ground was a rare and valuable skill. He wasn't just a policy officer, he was a diplomat for science. At the Max Planck Institute, where he did his graduate research, the shock was just as strong. The community there remembered a bright, curious mind at the start of a promising career. His murder felt like a betrayal of everything he stood for, a life dedicated to reason, cut short by senseless violence. The loss was felt not just by his direct colleagues, but by the whole international network of researchers he had inspired. He had a gift for public engagement, for making complex scientific ideas easy to understand, and sharing his passion with anyone who would listen. His death also shines a harsh light on some broader, troubling issues. It's a stark reminder of the dangers that can hide behind the anonymity of online dating. These apps are a huge part of modern social life, but Coatti's story is a tragic example of how they can be twisted by criminals to target people. For LGBTQ+ travelers who often use these apps to connect with the local community in new places, the case highlighted a specific and very real risk. The tragedy also hit home for the community of scientists and researchers who, like Coatti, travel the world for their work. His journey started with a noble goal: volunteering at a biodiversity station, but ended in a way that highlights the vulnerabilities of those who work in the field, often in remote or unfamiliar places. Alessandro Coatti was a man who moved through the world with an open heart and a curious mind. He looked for connection, whether it was in a high-level policy debate in London or a chat on a dating app in a Colombian resort town. The tragedy is that this very openness was what his killers exploited. His legacy, though, isn't defined by the horror of his death, but by the brilliance and compassion of his life. His work in science policy, his fight for ethical research, and his commitment to a more inclusive world will continue to inspire those who knew him for years to come. The story of Alessandro Coatti is a devastating series of contrasts. A brilliant scientist on a dream trip, a beautiful resort city with a dark, criminal underbelly, a search for human connection that ended in a deadly trap. Thanks to the meticulous work of investigators using digital forensics, the truth came out. This wasn't a cartel hit, but a brutal robbery and murder carried out by a gang that hunted tourists through a dating app. 4 suspects were arrested, bringing some measure of justice, but nothing can erase the tragedy of what happened. Alessandro's death serves as a poignant reminder of the hidden dangers associated with modern travel and technology. But more than that, it's the story of a vibrant life cut tragically short. A man known for his intellect, warmth, and passion for making the world better was taken by an act of senseless violence. His legacy lives on in the policies he shaped, the people he inspired, and the scientific community that now mourns one of its brightest stars. It is a heartbreaking example of how a journey of discovery can, in an instant, turn into an incomprehensible nightmare. The details of this case are both complex and tragic, and it's so important that we remember the victim at the heart of it all. What are your thoughts on the role that technology played here, both for the criminals and for the investigators? Let us know in the comments below. And if you appreciate in-depth true crime stories that focus on respectful and factual reporting, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you for watching.